It's time we get some reading done. I'm the Frank Friar. Let's get frank about it. If you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, please make sure to click that subscribe button and that little bell icon. Those are great ways to stay up to date with everything I'm doing on the YouTube channel. Also, if you want to continue the conversation, leave a comment down below. Or you can head on over to the old Twitter and check out my Twitter handle, @CarmeliteNick. Or, if you're a Facebooker, go on over to Facebook and check out my Facebook page, The Real Frank Friar. These are two great resources to stay up to date with everything I'm doing in the land of Carmel. Enjoy the video. So in my New Year's video, I talked about, setting appropriate goals, being realistic, littleness in terms of our expectation of ourselves, etc. And I kind of highlighted, reading great big long books, and a multitude of other books and etc. and how that might cause a burnout within us. Well, one of the goals I've set, not just for this new year, but last year too, is I try to read one book a month. Depending on the size and the scope of the book, sometimes I meet that, sometimes I don't, etc. But I just finished one book and I heard amazing things about it. And my expectation was high because I heard her speak on some podcasts. I've heard this book spoken about on some podcasts, and my expectation was blown out of the water. And because of the content and the topic and the focus of this book, I want to do a quick little video to share it with you all today and to recommend it. I was really quite surprised, and I know for my own ministry, I will be using this book regularly. It's On Reading Well by Karen Swallow Prior. All right. So I'll try to put the name and the title of the book down below, and if I can, an Amazon link. But you can go to any website and buy it. It's not that expensive. I think I got it on sale for like 18 bucks or something. So, sorry if my voice is a little funky. I'm getting off of a cold. But this book, in essence, what she's doing is each chapter is focusing on a particular virtue. And within that chapter, she looks at a particular book that helps one to understand that virtue. Because maybe within the context of the book, there was an absence of that virtue, or there was a certain character within a book that was an exemplar of that virtue. So, for example, the chapter on temperance, she looks at The Great Gatsby. If you never read that book, a little surprised, the main character, the Gatsby character, not a man of temperance, okay? And then, of course, for the chapter on faith, she uses the book Silence, okay? There's just a Martin Scorsese movie out about it, etc. The overall language, like her writing style, very witty, very funny. She gets into wrestling with the etymological foundation of a lot of these virtues. She spends 4 chapters looking at the cardinal virtues, so prudence, justice, we have temperance and fortitude. And then she looks at the theological virtues, so faith, hope, and love. And then, of course, the heavenly virtues, what makes up the back end of the book. So things like patience, for example. For overcoming wrath. There you go. Just so she wrestles with the etymological foundations of the particular virtue, the concepts that have formed around that word, the deficiencies, the things that make up the deficiency. So, if you're struggling with fortitude, what's going on with cowardice, for example, or an excess, of that particular virtue. So virtues are about having that medium. She herself is a Christian. I don't know if she's a Catholic now, but she weaves in a multitude of great Catholic sources, along with some great Protestant sources and other secular sources. The intro to this book in the importance of reading good literature, not necessarily entertaining literature, but good literature that sort of puts before the reader the human condition, the imperfections and the glories of it, and invites the reader into wrestling with that reality. So after the book is done, there can be that process of reflection and of understanding oneself as a member of the human family, and etc. It's just really, really good stuff. I mentioned temperance, just going forward, and how does one understand this virtue? What do the characters show us about this virtue? What are the ramifications when it's lacking? What are the ramifications when you're over and above? Some of the chapters just really stump me. The chapter on kindness, for years now, I've been telling people not to call me a nice man because I don't see myself as a nice man. I see myself and I try to strive as a kind man, because I always tell people those two words are not the same thing. She has a whole chapter because kindness is one of the heavenly virtues that helps us to particularly overcome envy, which is, being jealous about another's good. That was one of my favorite chapters, her chapter on hope, where she looks at the book The Road and understanding sort of the different types of hope, the secular hope, but this religious sense that might be permeating within the text, and this struggle between the Father and the Son within that. And I don't want to spoil some of her points within the book, but I'm still just utterly amazed. She's been engaging with me on some social media stuff, and it's just been picking her brains about some things. And I want to read some other stuff by her again. On Reading Well, right there, Karen Swallow Friar. It's written, I would say, at a high school level. This would be a great adult book reading club, book reading group maybe in your parish, working for your DREs, working with, maybe your catechist teachers. You could set up a great retreat model out of these things. High schoolers, I think you could work with high schoolers on this thing. Just cultivating. We learn how to read in school. Getting used to the language and perceiving things. But then there's reading a book, and then there's reading a book, like getting into the rich nuances and some of her points that she has about satirical content and how to understand that satire and what does that mean to read satire in a book, and wrestling with the symbols and the images. Just really good, but not in a way where you get lost in jargon, but she just weaves it sometimes in a very, not as sad as disappointing, but sad as in an utterly real, profound way. One of the chapters, there's a little talk about suicide, which you all, if you've seen videos in the past, is a topic close, near and dear to my heart. There's a certain, I believe she has some Southern roots, so there's that definitely that Southern wit that comes through. So it was very entertaining at times, and etc. as I sort of list the catchphrase. There's one thing I just wanted to put out there for you all. She says this about kindness. Kindness is unlike other virtues in that, quote, we know exactly what it is in most everyday situations, and yet our knowing what it is makes it easier to avoid, end quote. We, quote, are profoundly ambivalent about kindness, end quote, in that we, quote, are never as kind as we want to be, but nothing outrages us more than people being unkind to us, end quote. Kindness isn't natural to most of us, which is why it is a virtue that needs to be taught and cultivated. When I was a child, my parents and a couple of my teachers encouraged, really pressured me to give time and attention to the children in my classroom and neighborhood who were often overlooked or left out. I wasn't always happy then about being made to do this, but I am thankful now. Teaching me compassion and attentiveness towards others was one of the great gifts that adults in my life gave me as a child. The ones who give such kindness, particularly to, quote, the least of these, end quote, will be even more blessed than the ones who receive it, end quote. So I obviously put my own flair on it with my intonations and stuff, but it reads that beautifully, that richly. If you're looking for a good book to incorporate into yourself, this would be a great book to prepare for Lent. For wrestling with what are the virtues that I'm really struggling with? What are the virtues I'm excelling with? What am I overdoing in my life? Am I becoming overly temperate? A temperate kind of person, and just, is that leading to issues? How is my faith, hope, and love, these gifts that we have been entrusted with us by Christ? Great book, not asking in a judgmental way, but in a way that one can seek the understanding that the Lord wishes us to have. He has sent unto us the Spirit and has given us the gifts of the Spirit as made known through the prophet Isaiah. So that is Karen Swallow Friar on Reading Well. Highly recommend this particular book for a good spiritual read and just a good reading of the mind and the heart, to incorporate a great vocabulary to understand the moral life is not just something that is apart from you, but is something in you. And this is a great way to learn how to speak about it and how to grow in it. So thank you very much for your time today, my brothers and sisters. Know that I'm with you. Know that I'm praying for you. May God continue to bless you. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for watching the video today. If you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, please make sure to click that little subscribe button and then the bell icon down below. That way you stay up to date with all the things I'm doing here on this YouTube channel. Also, if you want to keep the conversation going, leave a comment down below. I always try to engage thoughtful conversations down there in the comment section. Also, if you're a Twitter fan like myself, head on over to Twitter and check out my Twitter handle @CarmeliteNick. Or if you're a Facebooker, check out my Facebook page, The Real Frank Friar. These are two great resources to stay up to date with everything I'm doing in the land of Carmel. Thank you for your time today. Know that I'll be praying for you.
you.